Tuesday. This is Diane Rayner with Diane Rayner Coaching, and today the After Shift report is going to be a topic that, well, I know it will step on my toes. I don't know if it'll step on your toes or not, but I'm going to talk a little bit about being judgmental. And I know none of us would ever like to think that we are judgmental, but I'm going to go ahead and admit that I can be judgmental. Now, the good thing is I am so much better than I used to be. And I was telling my husband the other day, he's like, "What are you going to talk about?" And I said, "Oh, being judgmental." And I said, when I think I really always knew that I had these tendencies, but I'll tell you a time that it really was driven home for me. I was had a 2 hour layover. I was flying down to Georgia to see my daughter, and in this layover, what are you going to do? I just was sitting there, and as every person walked past, I was like, "Oh my gosh, look at them! Why did you dress to come to the airport like that? I mean, you can be casual, but oh my gosh, you just look like you rolled out of bed, and look at your hair. Do you really think that looks good?" I mean, I was catching myself. I hate to admit it, but I was catching myself doing that, and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And so yeah, that I have to admit that about myself. And it's not pretty. It's not pretty. But let's talk about why people are judgmental. And it really kind of boils down to just a couple of things, but then these couple of things can take little branches. So typically, when someone is judgmental, they are insecure themselves or have a low self esteem. And not consciously, but they want the other person to look inferior because somehow in their mind it builds them up and it takes the heat off of their own insecurities per se. Um, and maybe as a child you were made to feel inferior, not good enough. Um, you felt intimidated, and I do know that growing up, I always felt like I was a couple of fashion statements behind the times. I was super, super skinny. And how I long for that now, but string bean was always the name, and that just didn't feel good when you're a teenager and you're starting to be aware of the opposite sex and want to be attractive and stuff. I never seemed to quite know how to do my hair, and I wasn't in the in crowd, and so you know I'm sure a lot of that is where it stemmed from. And sometimes our parents will be that way toward us. That they can be critical, demand perfection, and we tend to mimic what we hear our parents say and do. So what the takeaway here is, oftentimes it comes from a place of suffering. Okay, certainly I promise you I would never sit there and say those things to the people that I was saying in my mind, but that doesn't make it right by any means. And so it's just something to think about. Like recently I was in a situation with other people, and the people that I knew and that loved, and I was just like, why are they acting like that? I mean, they always do that. In my mind, I was having these conversations, and then I was like, hold up, rein it in. Always a good opportunity to see yourself in this. And it's like, you're feeling inferior, but it's something that you created, Diane. Nobody else created it. You created it. And that person is showing up just like they always do. They're not being different. They're just being them. And so, does their way of being change who I am? Does it make me have to act differently? Well, of course not. So it was a great opportunity for me to self-correct in that moment and work again on breaking that habit. And let me go back to the airport situation. I'll tell you what I did with this 2 hour layover. The first hour I was critical of everybody, and then once I kind of reined that in, I'm like, okay, here's an exercise you're going to do, Diane. You're going to for the next hour look at every person that passes you, and you're going to find something positive about that person. See, it's dangerous to be inside my mind and have a conversation with me, myself, and I. So I did that. I mean, it was like, okay, well, you know what? Their slippers are, I love the color of their slippers. That hair color. Oh my gosh, that hair. She's the prettiest hair. I love that hair color. Or, oh, it was wintertime. Her coat is so pretty. I love that. So I was, or they have kind eyes. You know, I really try to even get off of the superficial outfit type thing, but see if I could see them, you know, really see them in how they showed up and how they presented. Now, mind you, I didn't talk to any of these people. It was just that initial judgment. It was a great exercise because there were times I was like, I don't say anything. I don't say a thing in here I like. And I'm like, well, what does my opinion count for anything? Like, you have to dig a little deeper, you know? And so, um, so that's a little activity I will share with you. And, you know, these are things that are being judgmental. That is a hard thing to admit about ourselves, isn't it? And I hope that that doesn't apply to you also. I'm not, please don't think I'm assuming that everybody is like me and judgmental because everybody's situation is different. You may have had parents who were very supportive, who were very confident within themselves, and so they displayed that to you, mirrored it to you for you to follow. While I had wonderful parents, they had their own insecurities, and they brought that to the table um, as well. So I learned it early on. But the good thing is I get to change that, you know? And so I think just, you know, I say this all the time. I feel like every week I say just the awareness of it. If you are looking into today, just because of this conversation, is it possible that I do that? And then just spend a few days noticing. Do you act that way? Or maybe you know right off the bat, yeah, I do. And, you know, it's okay to admit that I felt inferior as as a teenage girl, and even as a young adult. Sometimes I felt a little, if I wasn't in my comfort zone, you know, as a nurse, you know, I mean, I was in my element. I was in the zone, and I felt invincible. But in outside situations, outside the hospital setting or practice of nursing, and in other areas in the hospital, then I did, and sometimes every blue moon still have a little bit of inferiority. So I have to again talk to myself and think about it. You know, who are you? What do you stand for? You're a wonderful person, all in your own right. And so, you know, those are little self-talk things that we sometimes have to do. But just be vulnerable for a moment with yourself, and then see if you can course correct yourself, just like I was doing this weekend or this past week, or like I did in the airport. And if you'd ever want to talk about it, I'd love to help walk through the process with you. So that's what I have for today, and I hope you all have a great week. And I will talk with you next Tuesday. Bye for now.